There's a man you've never heard of who touches your life every single day. When you order a book online and it arrives from halfway across the world. When your favorite coffee beans make their journey from Colombia to your local cafe. When a smartphone in your pocket travels from a factory in Asia to your hands. Behind all of this, behind the clothes you wear, the furniture in your home, the medicine in your cabinet, there's an invisible network. A web of ships, planes, trucks, and warehouses that spans the entire planet. And at the center of this web sits one man, Klaus-Michael Kühne. He's 87 years old, worth over $40 billion, the richest person in Germany. Yet if you walk past him on the street in his Swiss village, you probably wouldn't recognize him. No flashy cars, no social media presence, no tech startup story or revolutionary app. Just ships, thousands and thousands of ships. But this isn't a story about ships. This is a story about how one family built an empire on the movement of everything, survived 2 world wars, navigated one of history's darkest chapters, and emerged to control a piece of nearly every product that crosses an ocean. Let's go back to 1855, to a small German town where a boy named August Kühne was born to a forester, someone who manages forests, nothing glamorous. August dreamed of becoming a lawyer, of arguing cases in grand courtrooms, of making something of himself. But his father couldn't afford law school. So at 17, August did what countless young men did in those days. He took an apprenticeship, not in forestry like his father, but with an import-export company in Bremen called LG Dyes and Company. He learned the business of moving goods across borders, of navigating the complex world of shipping manifests and customs forms and international trade. Then, in the mid-1870s, economic depression hit. August was laid off. Here's where the story could have ended. A young man with dreams, no money, no job, watching his ambitions fade. But August Kühne had learned something during his apprenticeship. The world was getting smaller. Ships were getting faster. And someone had to organize all those goods moving back and forth across the Atlantic. In 1890, at age 35, August partnered with a man named Friedrich Nagel. Together, they founded a small freight forwarding company in Bremen. They called it Kühne plus Nagel. Their specialty? Cotton. They would consolidate freight, gather smaller shipments from multiple clients, and combine them into larger loads that could cross the ocean more efficiently. It was unglamorous work, paperwork, logistics, making sure things got from point A to point B. But it was the beginning of something extraordinary. By 1902, Kühne plus Nagel had expanded to Hamburg, Germany's greatest port city. The business was growing. When Friedrich Nagel died in 1907, August bought out his shares, but kept his partner's name on the company. A gesture of respect that would echo through more than a century. August had 2 sons, Alfred and Werner. And in 1910, young Alfred, who dreamed of being an artist, chose a different path. He began an apprenticeship in the Hamburg branch of his father's company. It was perfect timing. Germany was industrializing rapidly. The demand for logistics was exploding. Kühne plus Nagel opened offices in Berlin, in Lübeck, and Leipzig. They were becoming one of Germany's premier logistics companies. Then came 1914. World War I brought business to a near standstill. Ships couldn't cross the Atlantic. Trade routes were blocked. The company barely survived. But they did survive. And August Kühne, the forester's son who'd built an empire from nothing, died in 1932 at age 77, leaving the company to his sons Alfred and Werner. This is where the story gets complicated, because what happened next would haunt the Kühne family for generations. We need to talk about something uncomfortable, something the Kühne family tried to bury for decades. When the Nazis came to power in 1933, Alfred Mercedes Kühne joined the Nazi Party. Their company, Kühne plus Nagel, would go on to play a significant role in the systematic looting of Jewish property across occupied Europe. The operation was called M-Action. Between 1940 and 1944, Nazi authorities removed the furniture, belongings, and possessions from approximately 65,000 Jewish homes in the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Luxembourg. These weren't just random thefts. This was industrial-scale theft, organized with German efficiency. And Kühne plus Nagel handled the logistics. They chartered steamers. They organized the trains, 674 of them. They transported 220 armchairs, 105 beds, 363 tables, 598 chairs, boxes of glassware, mirrors, lamps, even strollers, all stolen from Jewish families, back to Germany. By 1944, Kühne Nagel had grown from 7 branches to 26 across Europe, fattened on the spoils of genocide. In 2015, when Klaus-Michael Kühne commissioned a study on the company's history, researchers uncovered these facts. The billionaire clashed with the researchers. He didn't want this story told, but the evidence was undeniable. Today, there's a memorial in Bremen, 150 meters from Kühne Nagel's headquarters. Not as close as the city wanted it. The company resisted, but they're nonetheless a reminder of where some of this wealth came from. This part matters. Not because Klaus-Michael, born in 1937, just a baby during the war, is personally responsible for his father's actions, but because understanding where wealth comes from, how empires are built, requires looking at the full picture, the comfortable parts and the uncomfortable ones. June 2nd, 1937. Hamburg. Klaus-Michael Kühne was born into a world on the brink of catastrophe. His earliest memories would have been of air raid sirens, of bombed-out buildings, of a Germany in ruins. When the war ended, his father's company, like everything in Germany, had to rebuild. Alfred focused on providing transport in the 3 remaining occupation zones. They opened a modern warehouse in Hamburg's Freeport. Slowly, painstakingly, they recovered. Klaus-Michael was a quiet boy. He went to Heinrich Hertz Gymnasium, where he sat next to a classmate named Wolf Biermann, who would become a famous singer and poet. Biermann later recalled how he tried to convince young Klaus-Michael of the advantages of communism during biology class. It never worked. After graduating in 1956, Klaus-Michael didn't rush into the family business. He took a different path, banking. For 2 years, he completed a commercial apprenticeship at Munchmeyer & Company, a private Hamburg bank. He learned about finance, about capital, about how money moved through the global economy. Only then, in 1958, did he join Kühne Nagel as a trainee. He spent 5 years learning the business from the ground up, working in various European and overseas branches, understanding every aspect of the operation. In 1963, at age 26, he became a junior partner. In 1966, at just 30 years old, he became CEO, and he had a vision. The world Klaus-Michael inherited was changing fast. In the 1950s and 60s, his father Alfred had begun international expansion, opening offices in Canada, in the Netherlands, and the Middle East. But Klaus-Michael saw something bigger. He saw that the future wasn't just about moving goods. It was about managing how goods moved. It was about becoming an integral part of the global supply chain, so essential that companies couldn't function without you. This was the era of containerization, the revolutionary idea that instead of loading individual crates and boxes onto ships, you could pack everything into standard-sized metal boxes that could be easily loaded, stacked, and transferred between ships, trains, and trucks. It was boring. It was technical. It changed everything. Klaus-Michael went on an acquisition spree. He bought competitors in regions where Kühne Nagel had limited presence. He expanded into road logistics, contract logistics, warehousing. The company grew from a traditional shipping firm into a full-service logistics provider. In 1975, he made a crucial decision: moved the headquarters to Switzerland, specifically to a small village called Schindellegi. This wasn't just about business. Switzerland's favorable tax laws meant the company, and Klaus-Michael personally, could keep more of what they earned. This matters because today, despite being Germany's richest man, despite his business making most of its sales in Germany, Klaus-Michael Kühne doesn't pay German taxes. He lives in Switzerland. His companies are structured through Swiss holding companies. It's legal, but it's controversial. A man who's built his fortune on German infrastructure and labor, who contributes to German culture and politics, paying his taxes elsewhere. But back to the 1970s and 80s. Klaus-Michael continued to expand. By 1981, when his father Alfred died, Klaus-Michael was firmly in control. He transformed the company from a regional German forwarder into a global logistics powerhouse. This is where the strategy shifted. In 1992, Kühne plus Nagel bought back a 50% stake that had been sold to British conglomerate Lonrho. Then, in May 1994, Klaus-Michael took the company public, listing it on the Zurich and Frankfurt stock exchanges. This was brilliant. Going public provided capital for more acquisitions while allowing Klaus-Michael to maintain majority control. He kept 53% of the shares, enough to make every major decision, while getting access to billions in public markets. The timing was perfect. The 1990s saw the fall of the Berlin Wall, German reunification, the rise of globalization. Trade was exploding. E-commerce was beginning. The world needed logistics more than ever. Klaus-Michael made strategic moves. In 2000, Kühne plus Nagel partnered with Singapore-based Semcorp Logistics, gaining a foothold in Asia-Pacific. In 2001, they acquired USCO Logistics, a major American warehouse-based logistics provider, for $300 million. By the late 1990s, Klaus-Michael was landing contracts that would define the modern supply chain. DuPont hired Kühne plus Nagel to operate their entire distribution network across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Other major corporations followed. Logistics operations are of crucial significance for the further evolution of the Kühne and Nagel Group. Klaus-Michael told the Journal of Commerce in 1998. It sounds boring, but what he was really saying was this: we're not just moving your stuff anymore. We're running the invisible machinery that makes your entire business work. But Klaus-Michael wasn't done, because while Kühne plus Nagel handled freight forwarding, organizing shipments for clients, he saw another opportunity, actually owning the ships themselves. In 2008, he made a bold move. Along with a group of investors, he acquired a major stake in Hapag-Lloyd, one of Europe's largest container shipping companies. This was a company with roots going back to 1847, even older than Kühne plus Nagel, formed from the merger of two legendary German shipping lines. Over the next decade, Klaus-Michael steadily increased his stake in Hapag-Lloyd. In 2020, just before the COVID-19 pandemic triggered a massive boom in shipping prices, he increased his stake to 30%, making him the largest shareholder. The timing was extraordinary, possibly lucky, possibly brilliant. When the pandemic hit, global supply chains collapsed and then exploded. Container shipping rates went through the roof. Hapag-Lloyd made record profits. Between 2021 and 2024, Klaus-Michael's stake in Hapag-Lloyd paid him over $5.65 billion in dividends. But he wasn't done expanding. During the pandemic, when Lufthansa, Germany's flagship airline, faced bankruptcy and required a government bailout, Klaus-Michael saw opportunity. In 2022, as Germany sold its stake to recover bailout funds, he doubled his position. Today, he owns about 15% of Lufthansa, making him the airline's largest individual shareholder. Think about what this means. Klaus-Michael Kühne now has significant control over sea freight through Kühne plus Nagel and Hapag-Lloyd, and air freight through Lufthansa. If you're shipping goods across an ocean or across a continent, chances are Klaus-Michael profits somewhere along the chain. So who is Klaus-Michael Kühne as a person? He's notoriously private. He gives few interviews. He doesn't do social media. He doesn't throw lavish parties or buy sports teams. Well, mostly. More on that later. He married his wife Christine in 1989 when he was 52 years old. They have no children. This created a fascinating question. Who inherits one of Germany's great fortunes? Klaus-Michael's answer was to establish the Kühne Foundation, a Swiss nonprofit to which he contributes 5 million Swiss francs annually. When he dies, his entire business empire, currently worth about $40 billion, will pass to this foundation, making it one of Europe's largest philanthropic organizations. The foundation's board includes serious people, former Bundesbank President Jens Weidmann among them. As far as anyone can tell, the foundation is in good hands, Klaus-Michael told the German newspaper FAZ in a rare interview. But what does Klaus-Michael care about? What drives a man who has more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes? Hamburg. His heart belongs to Hamburg. Despite living in Switzerland for nearly 50 years, Klaus-Michael has poured money into his hometown. He co-founded the Kühne Logistics University in Hamburg, which has become one of Europe's leading institutions for supply chain management. He contributed significantly to the Elbphilharmonie, Hamburg's stunning concert hall that has become an architectural icon. And then there's football. In Germany, football isn't just a sport, it's religion. And Hamburg's team, Hamburger SV, is part of the city's soul. When HSV faced financial troubles, Klaus-Michael stepped in. He bought stakes in player transfer rights. He provided loans, 17 million euros at one point. He kept the club afloat, even when he admitted it wasn't sustainable as an investment. MIT wenigen Millionen ist es nicht gemacht, he told Die Zeit. A few million isn't enough. Why do it? Because Hamburg. Because loyalty. Because some things matter more than return on investment. In 2020 and 2021, something remarkable happened. 3 trends converged. First, the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted global supply chains. Factories closed. Ports backed up. Container ships got stuck in all the wrong places. The cost of shipping a container from Asia to Europe went from $2,000 to $20,000. Second, e-commerce exploded. With physical stores closed, everyone started ordering online. Amazon, Alibaba, every retailer scrambled to move goods. The demand for logistics went through the roof. Third, Klaus-Michael, through luck or foresight, held major stakes in all the right companies at exactly the right time. His fortune literally doubled, from about $18 billion in 2020 to over $40 billion by 2024. Between 2021 and early 2025, his 3 main investments, Kühne plus Nagel, Hapag-Lloyd, and Lufthansa, paid him approximately $9.3 billion in dividends. Not in stock value, actual cash, money hitting his accounts. In one interview, Klaus-Michael seemed almost uncomfortable with it. The values that have been collected are almost frighteningly high, he told FAZ. Think about that. A man so wealthy that even he finds his wealth frightening. Here's the paradox of Klaus-Michael Kühne. He controls more of global trade than almost anyone alive. Every day, Kühne plus Nagel handles shipments for over 400,000 customers in more than 100 countries. The company operates nearly 1,300 offices and employs 79,000 people worldwide. Add in his stakes in Hapag-Lloyd and Lufthansa, and Klaus-Michael's companies touch millions of shipments every single day. Yet he doesn't actually control that much. He owns 53% of Kühne plus Nagel, a controlling stake, but he stepped down as CEO in 1999. He's now honorary chairman, a largely ceremonial position. Day-to-day operations are run by professional managers. He owns 30% of Hapag-Lloyd and 15% of Lufthansa, but these are minority stakes. He can influence decisions, but he doesn't run these companies. So what is Klaus-Michael Kühne, really? He's not a CEO. He's not an operator. He's not inventing new technologies or disrupting industries. He's an allocator of capital, a patient investor, a man who understands logistics at a fundamental level and puts money behind that understanding. And he's spectacularly good at it. As Klaus-Michael Kühne enters his late 80s, several questions loom. The succession question: who will actually run the Kühne Foundation after he dies? He's mentioned that Thomas Stahelin, his planned successor, is now 77 years old, perhaps too old himself. The foundation structure is set, but foundations aren't businesses. Will it preserve the empire, or will the pieces eventually be sold off? The tax question: should a man who benefits so much from German infrastructure, German employees, and German markets pay German taxes? Klaus-Michael argues he's been in Switzerland since 1975. Critics argue he's gaming the system. The history question: how should we remember the Kühne family empire? As a logistics success story spanning 135 years? As generational wealth built partly on war crimes? Both. The impact question: has Klaus-Michael's success been good for the world? One could argue that efficient logistics makes everything cheaper and more accessible. That the smartphone in your pocket and the medicine in your cabinet are affordable partly because of companies like Kühne plus Nagel. One could also argue that this kind of concentrated wealth is fundamentally unhealthy for society, regardless of how it's made. There are no easy answers. There's a concept in economics called the invisible hand, the idea that individual pursuit of self-interest can lead to broader social benefits. Adam Smith wrote about it in 1776. Klaus-Michael Kühne is, in many ways, the embodiment of this idea. He didn't set out to make global trade more efficient. He set out to build a profitable business. But in building that business, he and his competitors created the infrastructure that makes modern life possible. When you order something online and marvel that it arrives in days from across the world, that's the invisible hand. When your local store has products from 50 different countries, that's the invisible hand. When medicine reaches a hospital in time to save a life, that's the invisible hand. But the invisible hand has visible consequences. It has a history, some of it dark. It creates wealth inequality on a staggering scale. It raises questions about taxes, about fairness, about what we owe to the societies that enable our success. Klaus-Michael Kühne didn't create the system. He just became its most successful player. Today, at 87, he lives quietly in his Swiss village. He goes to work, though he doesn't need to. He thinks about Hamburg, about his foundation, about the empire he'll leave behind. And somewhere right now, a container ship bearing the Hapag-Lloyd colors is crossing the Pacific. A Lufthansa cargo plane is landing in Frankfurt. A Kühne Nagel warehouse is loading a truck with goods destined for your neighborhood. The invisible empire running 24 hours a day, moving everything. You'll never see Klaus-Michael Kühne's name on any of it. But he's there embedded in the system, profiting from every movement, every shipment, every mile traveled. The richest man in Germany. The man who controls global trade. The man you've never heard of, who touches your life every single day.